If you've got no contact with your family, or you're even just thinking about it, you know how isolating it feels. I'm Jess, I'm a therapist and a coach, and I'm someone who made that really difficult decision around estrangement 5 years ago. And this space, the Scapegoat Club, is for anyone who's navigating that path. Whether you're just realizing that you have a difficult family, you're thinking about the level of contact you want, or maybe you've been estranged for a really long time. We're all welcome here. So today I want to share 5 things that I've learned over the years about myself, about the idea of family, and really what belonging is. The first point that really sticks with me is that it wasn't a case of I just left my family. It was that over the years I was slowly being pushed out. People can assume that estrangement is really one big event where we get angry and we just storm out. But that's not what happened. And also for the longest time, I believed that I had freely chosen to leave. Like I simply drew a line one day and walked out on my own terms. But now I see it differently. Yes, I did have a choice, but it was a choice that was made at the very end of an extremely long path. For decades, I was being pushed and nudged, slowly exiled by 1,000 mini exclusions. For example, when I voiced an opinion that didn't toe the family line, that wasn't the same as they were like, "Oh, Chess, why do you have to be so difficult?" Again, just by stating my individual identity, or just even floating an idea of something that I might want to explore. That made me unacceptable, different, other, and not okay with them. To bigger events when, for example, I was on a field trip when I was in university and my grandfather passed away. And yes, I was away, but I could very much have been contacted, but my family didn't. They didn't contact me, and they said, we just didn't want to bother you. But that was my choice, and it was my grandfather, and it was should have been my decision as to how I responded to that. So often that would happen if there was a family event or something was happening, they would say to me, "Oh, Jess, you don't need to bother. You don't need to bother yourself with that." But then if I chose not to attend or not to be involved, it would come back and they twisted it, and it was like, "Oh yeah, you're just too busy for us. Family isn't important." And I was like, what are you trying to do here? Which line are you getting? You wanting to choose both paths? But yes, I did have choices in that. I could have stood my ground and said, I want to be here, I want to be involved in these things. But again, without that hindsight, I didn't really see what the undertones were. That really the message I was being given was that, Jess, you don't really fit into this picture that we're painting for the family. So when the estrangement happened, finally, yes, I did set boundaries and I was very firm with them. But it wasn't a big, dramatic exit. I was forced into self-reliance. And I got to the point where the relationship was too damaging to stay in. So the second thing I've realized since estranging is that I am not the bad one. I spent decades believing that I was selfish, that I was hurtful, that I was ungrateful, because that was what I was being told, word for word. But actually, here's the thing. Here's what I am. I am outspoken. I am willful. I challenge when something is wrong. I will ask uncomfortable questions, especially around double standards. And of course, they didn't like that. But none of that makes me bad. That just makes me me. And now I'm actually very proud of who I am. And really, my family didn't really know me. Not the real me. They knew a version of me that they had created. Someone who is reactive, too intense, impossible to please, only ever thinking about myself. But that wasn't me. That was the character that they had created for me. The one that they wanted to see rather than who I really was. And I realize now that the character they were writing was demonizing what are now my strengths. And they did that so that they didn't have to look at their own shortcomings. Number 3 for me is that their love really wasn't loving. They said they loved me, but when I look back, I'm not even sure they even liked me. But I think in their minds it was love. But it wasn't the kind that listens, that celebrates strengths, that allows individuality and people to breathe. It was like this heavy, sticky coating of love, almost like a tar that holds you down and stops you moving. Every change and move from the family mythology that they have written for themselves is tracked, and it weighs you down. It was controlling and conditional and very heavy with judgment. So they may have loved me in their own way, but they didn't like me. And the truth teller side of me, they sure as hell didn't like her. And when I think about it, I don't even really know if they like themselves. There were always complaints and passive-aggressive jabs, gossiping about each other. It was like this low-key contempt that was humming in the background like the fridge. So it really makes sense that if they didn't like each other and I was the threat, then why on earth would they make the exception and actually like me? That was really never going to happen. And the 4th item is something I couldn't even have imagined when I was making those difficult decisions 5 years ago, because I didn't realize just how deeply the underlying problems in the relationship were affecting me. But today I realize that I am not only better, I am way, way better than I could ever have imagined. It's like the estrangement shifted everything. It cracked my world open. It hasn't been easy by any means, but now I have space to think and to breathe. I get to feel how I'm feeling now. I get to understand my perspective, and I don't have to stop tiptoeing around their rules. Now I have clarity, I have certainty, and I have confidence. Not that everything is going to be perfect and I'm always going to get things right, but more that I have trust in myself to be able to figure things out. Because the world makes sense now without their twisting, the shifting, and the constant sowing of confusion. I'm learning that I can handle life. I didn't think I could before, but I can handle it. I have all the tools that I need. And actually, that's kind of fun. So now my definition of normal has really changed. What I will tolerate and what I will accept. And my nervous system has recalibrated. What once felt normal for me is now almost unbearable. What once felt unreachable, peace and stillness and groundedness, that's my new standard. And that baseline is everything that I didn't know that I was missing. So friends, this last one really surprised me, and stick with me if it surprises you. I'm going to talk you through it, because I used to believe that estrangement was final. That once that bridge was burned, once that decision was made, it was forever. But now I'm really not that interested in that idea, because what I see is that that was their rule and not mine. Maybe it was just another way for them to try to control me. It was a deterrent or a threat, a looming punishment if ever I strayed too far. But here's the truth, they burned the bridge, but I get to decide if there's another path. But don't get me wrong, I stand by everything that I've said before. Those standards, they're here now. I'm not available for manipulation, for blame, for boundary crossing. And I will not open the door again to cruelty, to shaming, to any more illegal behavior. Never again. But the concept of reconnection, well, in a way it would be a new connection, because it would have to come with honesty, with accountability, with real, genuine need for connection and change. Yeah, I'm up for that. If they could finally take some responsibility instead of completely rewriting history. If they gave me a real apology and they were able to show that the family was a safe place to be, then yeah, my door is open. So Mum and Dad, if you can figure that out, go for it. But also, I am not holding my breath because I think the chances are so slim. But really, the ball's in their court. So we'll see what happens. So friends, wherever you are, if you're 5 years in, 5 months in, or just figuring out that this might be the path that you're on, please know that you're not alone. I see you and I know how complicated it is. Estrangement does not mean you're broken. Sometimes actually what it means is that you stop breaking yourself to try to fit into someone else's world. And if that's the case, then finally you can get a chance to rebuild yourself, and it's a pretty cool place to be. Friends, if this resonated with you, please drop me a comment. Let me know your experience if you feel open to that. I'd love to hear where you are and what time has taught you. And if you're navigating this messy space, wherever you are in it, hit the subscribe button, drop me a line if you want some one-on-one support, and we'll keep talking. Take care, friends. Bye for now.